Hello, I'm Karen Fernandez, and thank you for joining me. On today's episode of Living with Integrity, Creating an Abundant Life, we are going to discuss how to establish a foundation and connection to our source so we can start to manifest the life of abundance, which is our birthright. If we truly want to create or manifest a life of abundance, then we need to be connected to our source on a personal level. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you could do nothing. John 15, verse 5. If you don't relate or connect to things that are religious of nature, then try to look at it this way. Think of your brain as a supercomputer. Computers need to be connected or plugged in to a power source to work efficiently and effectively. God is that power source for each one of us. Let's face it, throughout all of history, there have been people who have done terrible atrocities in the name of God. There have been horrendous, abusive sex scandals portrayed throughout numerous organized religions. God has been subjected to many heinous crimes, prejudices, psychological, physical, sexual, and spiritual abuses against God's people. God or religion get the blame when it is the free will of sick individuals who carry out these acts. I myself have been abused within my own Catholic Church. I am not going to go into that story at this time, but at some point I will. It was truly by the grace of God that I was able to separate and not generalize an entire religion based on the experience I had with one extremely sick person's machinations. I am also grateful and fortunate that I had developed a solid foundation in my trust, faith, and love of Christ at a very young age by my father. So while my faith was tested, it was not destroyed because it was built upon solid rock. Why is it important to develop a personal relationship to our Creator? There are so many reasons and so many benefits for doing so. Our souls crave that connection. We all have a soul, and it needs to be spiritually fed. Our hearts are restless until it rests in the Lord, St. Augustine. We all have that part of ourselves that is thirsting and hungering for more. People and material things just won't satisfy this longing. It runs much deeper than this physical plane that we live on. Sometimes we think we can obtain these desires through this 3D life, in food, activities, people, money, status, fame, drugs, sex, travel, education. The list goes on and on. But those things can only partly satisfy. Some of those things can turn into bad habits or even addictions and then enslave us to them. Finding and developing that balance and temperance to the things we enjoy in life is key. But at the same time, we also long to understand and know ourselves on a deeper level. How do we do that? Where do we start? Connecting to our source puts us in a place of self-discovery. To thine own self be true, as said in Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Life is a tremendous gift. I really do believe we can do and become anything we set our minds to. Our words are so powerful. They can help create or destroy the life we are living. Our personality creates our own personal reality. How we talk, act, and treat each other has a direct effect of what we bring into our lives. I'm not living in a fantasy world. I understand how hard and difficult life can be. Life isn't easy or fair. We all aren't dealt the same cards in life. but we can determine how we play those cards in the game of life. No matter who we are, no matter how much money we have or how much poverty we live in, trials and tribulations come to us all. Some people experience tremendous abuse, neglect, and pain from a very young age. They have no positive role models or people to mirror to them healthy self-love. There are also times when people are victims of random acts of violence, accidents, tragedies, sickness, natural disasters. These are events we cannot control, and they can strike at any time and knock us to our core and the people we love. There are also people out in society looking to use. They lie, steal, cheat, manipulate, and even murder. How do we stay positive, hopeful, and trusting a loving, sovereign God when these things and worse are happening to us? I don't have an easy one-size-fits-all answer, but I do know from my own deep personal struggles and hardships that when I surrendered and asked the God of my understanding to help me, to give me guidance, strength, courage, and direction, I was open and willing, and it gave me the ability to find gratitude. Gratitude is a great place to start. There is always something to be grateful for. We tend to forget and take for granted the everyday things in our lives we are able to do. There is always someone who has a worse situation than we do. When I started to get out of my head and to stop being consumed by my own problems that were constantly on replay in my mind like a broken record, I started to break free from the shackles and chains that had kept me bound. These lower vibrational emotional frequencies, such as sadness, regret, resentment, bitterness, fear, anger, and victimhood, I would pray to God to remove these emotions and to help me to find the gratitude for what I did have in my life and for what I was able to do. Some people have said to me that they don't pray because they don't know formal prayers or know what to say. Yes, there are prayers in every religion that can be recited and memorized, but there are many ways and forms of prayer a person can do. Praying can be as simple as talking to God, like you would a close friend. Praying can be done in action, like helping someone, or in creativity, such as painting, drawing, building, dancing, poetry, singing, playing musical instruments, or in any sport, hobby, or exercise practice. When I was suffering from hardships or loss, I would ask God to help me. I would pray, please don't let me feel sorry for myself, and I would say that over and over again when my mind would be consumed by the things that were going wrong in my life. I would not allow myself to dwell in self-pity. And I'm so grateful to God for giving me that ability and that grace to do that. Control is an illusion. We don't have control over a lot of the circumstances or situations that come to us in our life. But we do have control in how we respond or how we react to these situations. Developing a deeper connection to God helps us to grow in trust, especially when things aren't going well in our life, when we feel alone, forgotten, or unsure of what to do next. Deepening our faith that there is a power greater than us at play in our lives will help us to surrender and let go of fear, anxiety, and worry. This will calm down our critter brain, which is the brain stem, or our survival primitive part of the brain, the fight, flight, or freeze response that makes up our sympathetic nervous system. When that turns off, our parasympathetic nervous system can turn on, which is the relax, restore, and healing part of our autonomic nervous system. Taking the time to develop a deeper relationship with our Creator builds up the lasting level of trust, love, and friendship that will anchor us to our sovereign God. This will give us the balance in our emotions to face our life and the storms that come our way, knowing that we are being led, guided, and that God is walking us through these trials. How can anyone trust God if they don't take the time to develop a bond and a personal relationship with God? We as people need to invest ourselves to build our own human relationships and friendships. It takes effort and time to get to know a person, to fully trust them, and to feel comfortable around them. It's the same with the Creator of the universe. God called us into being, created our existence. God knows us better than we know ourselves. In the call to Jeremiah, the Lord said, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." God has a plan for each of our lives. We are all creative, talented, and given gifts that are uniquely our own. When we take this time to develop a trusting and loving relationship with our Creator, we start to understand that life is happening for us, not to us. Where do we start? How do we begin to work with God and create the life we truly want to have? Well, we start right where we are. No matter what your situation in life is, be it pleasant or hellish, start there. Again, we can't control the outcomes, especially when it comes to others around us. But we can start to work on the way we respond. Are we being reactive, caught up in our own wounded ego, dealing with our shadow side by lashing out at others, blaming others while justifying or making excuses for our own poor behaviors? We have to be willing to be fully 100% honest with ourselves for our part in every situation that is playing out in our lives. We have our part. And when we overlook our fault or flaws, but see the huge grievances and errors in our neighbor's fault, it keeps us stagnant and stuck, playing small in the game of life. I get it. Sometimes we aren't wrong, and we are truly being treated in an unjust way. But trying to get someone to see something from our perspective is not always easy. Most times, people do not witness situations from reality, but from the way that they are, from their own ecology. This is also, or sometimes referred to, as their map. A map is how someone is brought up, their beliefs, behaviors, and identity. We all have some faulty wiring from outdated beliefs and mindsets that were established based on fear, lack, and a scarcity or poverty mindset. We were all born into a system in society that has been established in these ways. We have to be willing to shift our mindsets and create new paradigms that will help us let go of an either-or circumstance and start to look at it as a both-and experience. When we do this, we can then learn to reframe negative thought patterns while discovering ways to find the positive in the situation, which will lead us to gratitude and the willingness to be open to new possibilities for ourselves in our lives. I know these ways of being sound easier said than done, especially when we are caught up in clashing opinions or opposition, and the wounded ego or shadow side wants to come out to defend itself. That's why it's so important to establish that bond, friendship, reliance, and anchor to our loving God as our co-pilot on this journey we call life. If you were taught that God was punishing, demanding, exclusive, waiting for us to mess up so we can be judged, condemned, and rejected by God, that you had to act or be a certain way to earn God's approval and love, we have to let that go. God is love and created us out of love to be loved. Every living being, no exceptions. God dwells in each living being. Every human being has the same equal inherent dignity just by their birthright. Regardless of race, creed, ethnicity, gender, or social standing, In some cultures, when greeting one another, they will bow to each other in reverence for the God within. I think that's beautiful. God doesn't make junk. We all have a purpose, a reason, and a right to be here. Developing a personal walk with our Creator frees us from the bondage of self and helps us break down our shadow side that we all have. It allows us to truly be free, to live a life of abundance and joy. We will start to see the flow of harmony in our lives. We will start to witness synchronicities and alignment in our lives as well. So how do we do this? It will take time, repeated effort, and a daily renewal of intention. It won't be easy. I'm not saying this to discourage you, but just to prepare you, because nothing in life worth having is easy or happens instantaneously. It takes time to plant the seeds, to cultivate the garden of our souls, so to speak. If we want to produce good fruit and reap an abundant harvest, it takes effort. A daily routine is a great place to start. And we must be willing to try again and again when we fail and fall back into old behaviors, habits, and attitudes. Oh, we will fall back into them. We're human, and we are not perfect. Or when we start to feel lazy, sluggish, and tired, we have to establish anchors that will keep us motivated to keep going. It's usually when we are about to make some of our greatest progress that these little annoyances, triggers, or problems will arise to knock us off track. Being aware of this is half the battle. Getting a coach or having an accountability partner can be a huge help and a game changer. When we fall, the most important thing is to have compassion and understanding with ourselves. New behaviors take time to establish, but getting back up and starting again right from where we are is what's going to make that routine of ours a new habit and way of being. A routine can be unique and individual, but at the same time, I believe to connect to our Creator at a heart-centered consciousness, we need to incorporate a mind, body, and spirit practice. Meditation, visualization, body movement, breath work, contemplation, and reflection are some of the practices I like to think of as heavy hitters to get you tuned in and plugged in to the divine, universal source of love, the God frequency. If you have never tried to meditate before, it can be hard and awkward. Your mind can feel like it's racing. Random thoughts can come out of nowhere, distracting you and making you feel like you're doing it all wrong. But that's very normal to happen in the beginning when you're starting a new practice. Try not to be hard on yourself. Maybe start with just 2 to 3 minutes of just breathing, following your breath. And when the thoughts come, just release and let them go and start focusing on your breath again. Or you can listen to a guided meditation on YouTube. There are thousands to choose from, and you don't need to do a long meditation. You can do a 10-minute meditation. I myself have many different ways of meditating. Sometimes I do listen to them on YouTube. Sometimes I go for a walk in the park and practice visualization or mental rehearsal while listening to music. It's very relaxing, and I picture myself in different scenarios of how I want my life to play out. We have to be willing to do our part for ourselves with our Creator as our cornerstone and anchor that will help us advance in the game of life. Tune in next week as we go further into humility, mental rehearsal, and visualization as integral parts in strengthening and reinforcing our solid foundation. If you're interested in a more personalized, one-on-one method of action, contact me through my website, coachingwithkaren.com, where I will personally guide you through a 12-week program where you will not only be able to advance, but you will also thrive on your life's journey. Sessions can be done virtually or in person. The link to my website is located in the episode description. Thank you for listening.